Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Climate Crisis Podcast with your host, Sonika Kurode. As you'll see soon, I've changed my podcast format and I'm going to include pictures so that you can visually see what I'm talking about, and hopefully it'll make it more visually interesting. So today, the topic is about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch and what is being done to try to fix that problem. So let's get right into it. The ocean is made up of 5 gyres, and a gyre is a system of circulating ocean currents, and it kind of mimics a slow whirlpool. So basically, throughout the world, there are currents everywhere, and the culmination of these currents are these gyres, which is where all the currents converge into one area, and those currents make that whirlpool, as I talked about before. And the ocean has 5 main gyres: the North Pacific Gyre, the South Pacific Gyre, the North Atlantic Gyre, the South Atlantic Gyre, and the Indian Ocean Gyre. And plastic in the ocean flows through currents, and these gyres are where they ultimately end up getting trapped because of that whirlpool-like quality of the gyres. They get into them, and it is very hard for them to leave after. And the North Pacific Gyre actually has the biggest garbage patch. And this picture is an example of what it looked like at one point. And as you can see how massive the garbage patch is in scale to the man that's scuba diving in that area. And I'm assuming that he is working to get rid of some of the plastic, as you can see by that big blue patch of water. I'm sure that's why he is scuba diving in this massive area of trash, because why else would you do that? By the name, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, you'd think that it looks like an island of garbage, and it can at some points, as you can see here and here, but it also can just look like a bunch of plastic floating in the water, and that's what it mainly looks like. The only time it looks like an actual island is at the very epicenter of the patch. And the debris is spread from the surface all the way to the ocean floor, so this is not the only part of plastic that is in the water. And the Great Pacific Garbage Patch takes the space of 2 times the area of Texas, with 88,000 tons of garbage as of 2020. So obviously with this much plastic in the water, there are some environmental impacts that come with that. For one is, you may know, the entanglement of marine life, and plastic, like in the image of the 6-pack rings and fishing nets and strings, they can wrap around marine life, such as fishes and birds and turtles, and it can cause them to choke, or, as you can see in the turtle image here, become deformed, and these deformities can lead to death often. Another very harmful danger of the plastic in the water is microplastics. And microplastics are minuscule pieces of broken down plastic until they become really, really small, and they're barely visible, about 5 millimeters in length, and about the size of a mustard seed, as you can see in this image in comparison to the finger. And because they are so small, you think that they barely cause any harm, but microplastics are one of the most dangerous things in ocean debris. This is because marine life don't realize that they're ingesting the microplastic, and it continues to build up in their stomachs, and without passing through the system, eventually their stomach becomes full of this microplastic, and it won't eat anymore because of that sensation of having a full stomach. And without eating any food, they aren't getting any new nutrients, and eventually they are going to die. And you may have seen lots of images of whales and stuff like that when they cut up open their stomachs, and it's just a bunch of plastic, and that's essentially what happens. Marine debris can also cause non-native species to become invasive in other places. Not marine debris like these microplastics, but bigger ones like the soda can wrappers that we saw in the previous photo. Organisms like barnacles and crabs attach themselves to the debris, and they ride it through the currents into a new area. And basically, if the conditions work well enough in these new environments, the species can thrive and outcompete the ones inhabiting that area, and it will disrupt the ecosystem. Because they won't have any native predators, they will be able to thrive a lot and grow. and that will basically just kind of disrupt that other ecosystem because it'll create a lot of competition for other organisms, and it basically just throws off their whole ecosystem. So, as I said in the beginning of the podcast, there are people working to solve the problem of the garbage patches, and the Ocean Cleanup is one of these nonprofit companies. Boyan Slat founded this nonprofit at the young age of 18 in the Netherlands, and him and his team found out that the biggest contributor to ocean plastic is flowing in from the rivers. So their solution is to turn off the tap and mop the floor. And that means to stop trash flow from the rivers going into the ocean, or turn off the tap, and clean up what's already in the ocean, or mop the floor. So in order to turn off the tap, the Ocean Cleanup has created a machine called the Interceptor, and it has been implemented to stop the flow of trash from rivers into the ocean as of 2016. That's when this project started. So the machines are placed in rivers with a long barrier extruding from the front of the machine, and water flows with that barrier into the machine where plastic is extricated from the water in a process similar to a strainer. So the water would be able to flow through like the gaps, and the bigger pieces of plastic would get stuck, and it would be stored into one of 6 trash compartments that the Interceptor has. And once all 6 dumpsters are full, local operators are notified and they empty the bins. Currently, there are 3 operating Interceptors: 001 in Jakarta, Indonesia, 002 in Klang, Selangor, Malaysia, 004 in Rio Ozama, Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, and Interceptor 3, which is in Vietnam, but because of the pandemic, it hasn't been currently running and its progress has been slowed down. So these interceptors, as you can see in this image, have these long barriers coming out from the front of the machine, and water flows into the little V-shaped top that then goes through the whole compartment and filters out the plastic and lets the water run through the whole thing and go back into the river. And the way that they're situated makes it so that boats can still pass it because the rivers are wide enough to incorporate this machine and boats. So the next process of their solution is to mop the floor, or clean the pre-existing plastic that is already in the ocean, like in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And all of these interceptors are actually 100% solar powered, so they don't have any effect on global warming and aren't putting any harmful emissions into the air, so that's great too. Now, to mop the floor, which is the second part of their solution, is to clean the pre-existing plastic that's already in the oceans, like in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And the Ocean Cleanup nonprofit has made a system that uses 2 ships with a net-like contraption in between them, and that catches the plastic and lets water flow through. So as you can see in this image, that little white ring is the net, and those 2 ships in the front move forward, and all the plastic will get trapped in the net and the water will still flow through. And once the nets are filled up with trash, they are wrapped together and emptied. And in order to find the places where a lot of plastic is, they find hotspots of these areas and then send cleanup crews there. But unlike the interceptors, the system does use carbon, but the ocean cleanup crew is working to offset carbon emissions from the system. Now, you may be wondering where all of this trash is going. Well, it's definitely not going to landfills or recycling centers because those aren't beneficial to solving the problem anyway. So these plastics are actually being reused by the Ocean Cleanup Company to make sunglasses. And by purchasing the glasses, you are helping fund the nonprofit and allowing them to continue to help clean up the oceans. You also receive a case and a pouch, also made of ocean plastic, to store your glasses in, and a QR code embedded in the glasses which can tell you where the plastic in those glasses came from and allow you to find the glasses if they get lost. And I think that's pretty cool. So they're cleaning everything out from the ocean and then creating a product out of it that is useful, which is allowing them to fund again the cleaning up of the oceans. And these glasses are obviously recyclable, so that's also great. If you want more information on the Ocean Cleanup Project or want to contribute to their nonprofit, visit theoceancleanup.com. It's actually a very interesting website, and the reason that I wanted to make this podcast topic is because I remember in my 5th grade class, we were talking about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and we were doing some research on it, and I actually found that this company was trying to do something about it, but at that point it wasn't this like massive thing. They were just starting up trying to get a small system into the patch to clean up a little bit of plastic out, and now it's this huge full-blown thing in like a matter of 5-6 years, and I think that's really amazing. So, again, it's a very interesting website and they do a lot of great work, so you should definitely visit. And thank you so much for listening to the second episode. If you want to watch my first episode or the introduction episodes that I made, go to my YouTube channel at The Climate Crisis with Sonika Kurode, and you can watch those previous videos. So as you can see with this episode, I'm going to try to make them a little shorter so that I can push more videos out and keep them more contained to a specific topic. Subscribe, like, and follow me on Instagram too at the Climate Crisis Podcast. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.